Hello and happy Monday evening, everybody. I am Kevin Marhine. This is the Lions Grid, and we are coming to you live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Flexing today's episode because the Lions and Packers game got flexed to Sunday night, and of course, the playoffs, a potential for the Lions as the day started. But now that the late afternoon games are over with, and the Seattle Seahawks have found victory over the Los Angeles Rams in overtime, unfortunately, the Lions are eliminated from the playoffs. They can no longer make it, but they have an opportunity to go into Lambeau Field and do the same to the Packers and play spoiler to their season. And I think it actually goes a little bit further beyond that because I'm 32 years old, and in my 32 years of life, the Packers have won 30 of the 32 games at Lambeau Field in the regular season. Lions have won twice. As we talk about the Lions trying to shed the same old Lions moniker and really turn this organization around and build towards a team that can consistently attempt to make the playoffs, getting a win at Lambeau is a huge step. So yes, they can't make the playoffs this season. I have been saying for weeks, I haven't expected them and haven't thought they are required to make the playoffs. Obviously, if they hadn't lost to the Carolina Panthers in such a crummy fashion a couple of weeks ago, it could have been a much different story today. But, despite the mistakes that have happened this season, the Lions have done well. And so now it comes down to, can they do something that other Lions teams have struggled supremely to do, and that's beat Green Bay in Lambeau. And as my father points out, it's not. I am going with the Packers in this game. I am picking them. We'll get that out of the way now. My pick, I'm going with the Packers because statistically, it's what happens when the Lions play the Packers at Lambeau. The Packers win. And I think really, what we've seen from the Lions when they've been playing well is that, again, we've talked about it. Good teams win by having a positive turnover differential. And the Lions have done that. But the Green Bay Packers, who have also turned their season around and are also 8-8, have done the same thing by having a positive turnover differential. The difference is they're causing turnovers at a much higher rate. So you have a defense that is really forcing their opponents to turn the ball over versus the Lions, who have been doing a very good job of taking care of the football. I think it's been like 16 or 15 weeks since Jared Goff threw an interception. They did have the one fumble against the Panthers between where Goff and Ragnow had that miscommunication and they did fumble. But outside of that turnover, the Lions have really done a good job of not giving the ball away. So you're going to have those two strengths going against each other here tonight. But it's going to be cold in Lambeau. There's a reason why the Packers are so good in December and January, and it's because playing in Lambeau during this time of the year sucks. And the only team that seems to enjoy it is the Packers. Everybody else that goes there, not having a good time. So to go into Lambeau in the cold to knock the Packers out of the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers, this offense showing more life, the defense playing a lot better for the Packers, this is going to be a tough challenge for the Lions. And like I said, I'm going with the Packers because historically, statistically, the Packers get this win. So if the Detroit Lions really want to say, hey, we are a new team and really take something that their young players can build upon, if you come into an organization and you're just used to, okay, every year we play the Packers in Lambeau, we're taking a loss. If you can change that narrative so that your young players think, hey, we can go into Lambeau and get wins. It's not automatically a loss every time we find ourselves in Wisconsin. That can be huge for the Lions in years to come, and that's something they need to do. So we'll see. The both of these teams have really looked bad at points this season. Obviously, with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, he has not a lot of talent at the skill positions. I mean, he has both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon at the running back spot, which are two good running backs. But when you look at his receivers, he's got the young guys. And that's, at points throughout the season, they've looked really good. Christian Watkins has had, some games where he's had multiple touchdowns. And then there's other games where he's had multiple drops. But it seems here down the stretch, Aaron Rodgers is getting more and more comfortable with those young receivers, and we've seen more and more production out of them. So, and with the Lions, we know they started 1-6, then went on a 6-1 run, and we know that they've been playing very well down the stretch, minus the Carolina game. Um, it's I think a big thing for both of these teams. I think it's an important game for the Packers because if this game goes south and they don't make the playoffs, we could very well be seeing the end of the Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay. I think if they do get knocked out by the Lions here, it's going to be an interesting offseason. I think there'll be a lot of really interesting discussions if they do miss out on making the playoffs, and especially if the Lions are able to come in and beat them. And for the Lions, obviously, there's a lot of optimism, right? We are going to be heading into next season with high expectations for this team. They're going to have an early pick thanks to the Rams, and then they'll also have their first round pick. So they're going to be adding, and then they have the two picks in the second round, one from the Rams and their own. They're going to be adding potentially four really good players to their team, along with whoever else they can get later in the round. And Brad Holmes has shown an ability to select, good players in later rounds. So it's you're going to be adding talent to the Rams, or sorry, to the Lions in 2023. So there's going to be expectations there because they've been able to do what they've done this season with the talent they have, which, the biggest issue on defense is they just don't have the depth. They don't have, Hutchinson has been great. Houston has come on strong, but they haven't had the players consistently at all of the positions to really compete. And that's why their defense has been sort of lackluster. So if they can add in four new starters to that defense, that really helps bolster up this team and gets them on par with the offense, which would be fantastic because the offense has really been clicking. So there's a lot of optimism for the Lions heading into the season, next season. So if they can come in here and do something again that the same old Lions haven't been able to do, get a victory against the Packers at Lambeau, knocking them out of the playoffs, and then also sending the Packers into a downward spiral of maybe ending this Aaron Rodgers era in a sort of dumpster fire. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for the Lions to still want to win this game, even though the Seahawks made it so they can't go to the playoffs. And of course, there is the I guess the irony, the sort of cosmic workings of the fact that it was Quandre Diggs who got that interception in overtime against the Rams to set them up, set them up for or against the Rams to set up Geno Smith and the Seahawks to go ahead and get the win in overtime. But Matt Patricia, he's not here anymore. We don't want that bad juju on us. He's gone. The people who are responsible for trading Quandre Diggs, no longer part of the Lions organization, shouldn't have been held against us. But it was just sort of funny how the universe works. To have Quandre Diggs being the guy who gets that interception that seals the Lions' playoff hopes, because the Rams were certainly they gave the Seahawks all they wanted and almost more. So that was a close game. It was a fun one to watch, but yeah, unfortunately, Lions, their playoffs hopes are done. But I think really, if you're a Lions fan, there's still a lot to be excited about. Obviously, next season we just talked about what to look forward to, but you know, there's reasons to be excited to watch this game tonight, even though the Lions aren't going to the playoffs. I'd really like to see them come into Lambeau. And, like I said, I am picking the Packers to get the win because historically and statistically, that's the play. But that gives the Lions the chance to sort of show us that this is different. These different times. Everyone has been sort of quick to jump on the bandwagon of killing the same old Lions thing, and really, it's going to have to be done. And we've talked about taking things realistic and taking things slow on the Lions grid over the last few weeks. About there's not just going to be one moment that signifies the end of the woes that have been with the Lions organization. It's going to take consistently in the moments and opportunities that you get to step up to perform in those. So this is again another instance. They beat the Vikings earlier this season when they were 10-2 and were steamrolling the NFC North. They beat the Jets, who just missed out on the playoffs. They beat Jacksonville, who's a playoff team. And so this is just another moment in this season where they have the step up and can potentially get a win again and knock a team out of the playoffs and in a place where they don't historically get wins. So, the Lions have been proving me wrong a lot at points through the season. So even though I'm choosing the Packers in this game, because again, the Packers win at Lambeau. It's what they do, especially in December and January. I think there's certainly an opportunity for the Lions to come in here and get the win. I like what we've seen out of Jared Goff. Obviously, we know Amon-Ra St. Brown, what he's been doing. He's over 1,000 yards this season. DJ Chark has really come on in the last few weeks. Last week, of course, we saw Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift get things going in the ground game. I think there's certainly an opportunity here to really see a strong Lions offense go up against a Packers defense, which has been playing well down the stretch as well. I think what's going to be interesting is to see how the Lions receivers match up against Jair Alexander for the Packers, because he did a great job shutting down Justin Jefferson last week. And that is something that the Lions struggled with across the season in the two games they played the Vikings. They did not do a good job of containing him. So Alexander is a great cornerback, and we'll have to see how he impacts the Lions passing game. But hopefully what we saw last week out of Williams and Swift is an indication that they'll be able to run the ball effectively and sort of take some of that pressure off of Jared Goff in the passing attack and maybe open things up as they have to, bring more defenders into the box to deal with that. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And then on the defensive side of things, I think Jeffrey Okudah, he made it onto the injury report later this week, so I'm not sure if he is playing tonight or not. I haven't seen the official injury report for today, but regardless, overall this season he has certainly turned it around, and I think should be considered for one of the comeback players of the year spots. Obviously, he struggled in that game against Carolina and was ultimately benched for the second half. But outside of that game, he's really played well and been someone the Lions have counted on and depended on. So it's going to be interesting to see, how he plays tonight, if he plays, because again, I think one of the weaknesses, one of the spots, as FAB put out in chat, that they need to sort of prove on, and hopefully we'll see them use some of that draft capital in 2023 is at the corner position. It seemed like we had a Warrior who was when Jeff Okudah was struggling, Amani was playing really well. Now that Jeff Okudah is healthy and playing well, now Amani's struggling. So and he's been a healthy scratch for multiple games. So that's kind of a bummer, because it looked like he could potentially be a Pro Bowl caliber corner back when Okudah was struggling. But now in year 3, he seems to be struggling pretty mightily, and to the point where they often don't dress him for games. So they definitely need some more talent at the corner position. Again, thankfully, the Packers receivers aren't, we're not seeing Devontae Adams walk out there. There isn't Greg Jennings, no Jordy Nelson, none of the Packers greats throughout the years that Aaron Rodgers has enjoyed. But I think in a couple of seasons, if the Packers are able to keep things together and potentially making them miss out on the playoffs this season, could be a good way to help ensure that doesn't happen. But Christian Watson, has been he's been effective for the Packers. He has had some drops, but he has also had, again, multiple games with touchdowns. So he's currently sitting at 7 touchdowns and 500 yards. He could have, potentially could have a big day if Jeff Okudah and the Lions secondary isn't able to keep track of him. But other than that, like we talked about earlier in the episode, I think the strengths for both of these teams has been a positive turnover differential. Both offenses have been taking care of the ball. Both defenses have been forcing their opponents into mistakes. So really, it's going to come down to which team can do that in this game. It's something they both have excelled at. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of whose will prevails. Who is able to actually continue to take care of the football, because these are two division rivals who know each other very well. They've seen each other multiple times throughout the season. So it should be a good Sunday night football game. And it definitely would have been, I think, would have added something to the game to have a win and get in for both of the teams. But I definitely think the Lions are still going to be pretty motivated to come out here and try and stop the Packers from securing the last of the NFC playoff spots. So I know kickoff starts at, or I believe it's at 8:25. So there's not a lot of time left, but I certainly will be tuning in, and I hope everyone enjoyed today's it's the first nighttime episode of the Lions Grid. Of course, with the Sunday night football game, we were able to go ahead and watch the Seattle and Rams game, and then be able to have this game here, or do the pregame episode with the updated info about the playoff race. So again, if you haven't seen, or if you didn't hear earlier in the episode, unfortunately, Seattle did get that overtime win against the Rams, so no playoffs for the Lions this season. But still, I think we should see a pretty motivated team led by Dan Campbell out there onto Lambeau Field as they try to get a rare win in Green Bay. It would be the third one of my lifetime. So we'll see if they can do it. Again, I'm going with the Packers in it. It's the mathematical play, but thankfully for the Lions, I think I've only gotten two of the picks right so far this season. So, you know, they can easily come out here and surprise me and get this win. The opportunities there, and so far this season, they've taken advantage of some opportunities. They have let some go by, so we'll have to see what they can do here on Sunday Night Football. All right, this has been the Lions Grid. I'm Kevin Marhine. We've coming to you live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. Or you might be checking out the recording, and if you are, thank you. And if you enjoy the show and want to help the channel grow, please do hit a like, subscribe, or follow, depending on which channel you're watching on, whichever one's your favorite platform. And that way you can just stay up to date with the latest from the Lions Grid. We'll be back tomorrow for our post-game episode. We'll take a look at the results of this game, of course, talk about the NFC playoffs and who was able to secure it, if the Lions were able to knock the Packers out, or if the Packers will be making their way in. And then that'll be on Monday's episode. And then I'm sure that won't be our last episode for the season. We'll probably do at least one more, maybe a couple more, just to sort of wrap things up. Obviously, the Lions won't be playing into the playoffs, but there's still some things to talk about as they get ready for next season. So, again, Kevin Marhine, this has been the Lions Grid. I hope everyone enjoys tonight's Sunday night football game, and we'll catch you during the next episode. Thanks for watching. See you later.